Our next panel here, before we have our lunch break, will focus on how pluralism can lead to stability and growth in a democracy. And sadly, our scheduled moderator for this session had travel difficulties and is not able to join us, so I'll be stepping into that role for you today. All right. To introduce myself, my name is Peter Burns. I'm the Executive Director of the International Religious Freedom Summit. And again, our next panel is talking about how religious pluralism can lead to stability and growth. And this idea, the discussion of this session is how religious pluralism can lead to a nation to thrive, seeing greater economic growth and social stability. This idea may seem unintuitive. To more traditional societies, especially those who might be worried about losing unique traditions and customs in a multicultural movement, but that's not really what we're suggesting. What we're suggesting is that data has borne out that over recent years, nations that have allowed all their citizens to participate in society with their full identity, including their religious identity, are the ones that have prospered and been more stable. Looking at Pew data between 2007 and 2017, you can see that countries that embrace religious freedom saw a GDP growth that significantly outperformed countries that have remained religiously restrictive or become more restrictive over that same time period. A US ambassador named Edwin Noland actually wrote something I think that was really encapsulated these ideas. He said, "Protecting religious freedom can reduce the likelihood of armed conflict, violent extremism, and mass atrocities. Countries that protect religious freedom often have healthier populations, more educational opportunities for women, and higher levels of earned income for both men and women, along with other benefits." So our discussion today will focus on exploring these themes. And for that, I will introduce our esteemed panelists. We have with me here Ambassador Nathan Sales. He's a non-resident fellow with the Atlantic Council and formerly served as Undersecretary for Civilian and Security and Diplomacy and Human Rights in the U.S. State Department. We have Father Christu Rajan, who is from the Archdiocese of Madras and the founder of Advocates Forum for Social Justice, and Reverend Sharma with us, who's the founder of Transformation Nepal. So I'm going to start by asking Ambassador Sale to make some opening remarks on these topics. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for braving computer meltdowns and other difficulties to be here with us today. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes talking about the geopolitics of religious freedom, focusing on three broad issues. First of all, why does religious freedom matter as a matter of first principles? Second of all, taking a look at how bad actors around the world and in this region in particular are placing religious freedom under really historic pressure of a sort that we have not seen in many years. And then third, I'd like to talk about what should we do about this problem? What should be the policy response to the rising tide of hostility to religious freedom and the implications of that rising tide for geopolitics and the global order? So let's go back to first principles. Why are we here? Why does religious freedom matter at all? Well, I think it has an intrinsic value, but religious freedom also has an instrumental value. That is to say, religious freedom is valuable for its own sake. It is a necessary component of human flourishing. Authentic religious experience cannot happen at the barrel of a gun. It requires free choice. And so governments that recognize this principle allow human beings to worship, allow human beings to experience flourishing in a way that simply is not possible living under a coercive regime. But second, religious freedom also produces a number of instrumental benefits. It produces goods that we value in society for reasons apart from the importance of religion itself, and Peter mentioned some of these. Societies that respect religious freedom in the domestic sphere tend to be more prosperous. They have higher degrees of social cohesion. They have political processes that are inclusive and that function properly. All of those are good reasons to embrace religious freedom apart from principle. There's also an external dimension to religious freedom as well. Countries that tend to respect religious freedom also tend to be at peace with their neighbors. They tend to accept the status quo in the international system. That is to say, an international order that is based on human rights, that is based on consent rather than coercion. An international order, a system that is based on sovereign nations interacting with each other as equals, rather than a system in which the powerful control and the weak suffer what they must. That is unfortunately a vision of the international order that has come under increasing strain in recent years. My friend Ambassador Brownback earlier today mentioned that in the past 15 years we've really seen a receding tide of religious freedom. This is a set of values that is under pressure in a way that is I don't want to say unprecedented. The Roman Empire did some terrible things when it comes to religious freedom, but let's just say we're not living in the 1990s anymore, where there's a sense of optimism about human rights spreading across the globe, filling the void that had been left by Soviet communism. That sense of optimism, I think, is a thing of the past, and unfortunately we're dealing with a much darker reality around the world today. Across the world, we see bad actors like North Korea, like Russia, like the Islamic Republic of Iran, like communist China, suppressing authentic religious experience in their domestic systems. The examples are too well known to belabor right now. I don't want to belabor the point because you know more about this. This audience will know more about these problems than I can speak to. But let me just highlight a couple of particularly egregious examples. Russia has been waging a war on KGB corrupted Christianity in its country for many years. Vladimir Putin is the world's most cynical man. He likes to posture himself, he likes to present himself somehow as a defender of the church, a defender of traditional Christianity. Tell that to the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. The Islamic Republic of Iran beats women and beats girls into comas and to death for the supposed crime of failing to adequately observe religious strictures when it comes to wearing hijab. North Korea, good luck if you get caught with a Bible in Pyongyang. And then, of course, there's the People's Republic of China. They've been doing this for years. We've heard today about the atrocities committed against the people of Tibet, against practitioners of Falun Gong, against the Uyghur Muslims of China, of course. It's really, as Ambassador Brownback has said many times, a war on faith. There is no faith tradition in China that is safe from Xi Jinping and his minions. Whether that means tearing down minarets at mosques, harvesting the organs of political prisoners who are in jail because of their faith, or rewriting the Bible so that when Jesus says that those of us who are without sin cast the first stone, in the Xi Jinping approved version of this, Jesus actually picks up a stone and stones the woman to death. This is a dark, dark era that we are entering as Christians, as Muslims, as Buddhists, as practitioners of countless other faith traditions. China has a target on our back, and they will not hesitate to pull the trigger if given the opportunity. But it's not just a domestic problem. The key point that I want to leave you with today is that what happens at home when it comes to religious freedom does not stay at home. Countries that suppress the religious expression and belief and experiences of their own people export that repression around the world. Look at what Vladimir Putin's Russia has done to Christians in Ukraine. Look at what the Islamic Republic of Iran has done to members of the Jewish community around the world for decades. And now look at what China is trying to do. Just in the United States, within the past couple of months, there have been stories about private police stations that are a tool of the Chinese Communist Party to ensure that the long arm of the Politburo is able to reach Chinese citizens who have come to America to experience freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion or belief. Xi Jinping is watching you, even in New York City. So again, the domestic abuses against religious freedom are never confined to that country. They always spill over beyond their borders. None of us are safe. None of us who believe in religious freedom are safe because these hostile regimes see it as their mission to export their hostility around the world. So what do we do about it? Third and finally, and I'll wrap up so that we can hear from Father and Reverend and get into questions. What can we do about this rising trend of religious intolerance, state-sponsored religious intolerance? Well, to answer that question, I think I want to offer a hypothesis that can help explain why it is that states that respect religious freedom perform better by every available metric, economically, politically, social cohesion, geopolitically. I think it has to do with the state's understanding of its limited role. A state that respects religious freedom understands that there are certain inherent fundamental limits on its own power. It recognizes that there are certain relationships that lie beyond the power of the state to legitimately control. Relationships between, ultimately, humanity and God. Relationships between a priest and a penitent. Relationships between a husband and wife in a sacramental marriage. These are all, by positive law, beyond the power of the state to regulate, but even deeper than positive law, in a state that respects religious freedom, these relationships, these values are beyond the principled power of the state to touch. So if we have a state that respects a zone of human behavior, a zone of human belief into which it may not legitimately intrude, a state that respects those rules respects other rules too. It respects the rule of law, it respects human rights writ large. States, in other words, that respect religious freedom tend to, let me put it this way, it's a bundle of goods. States that respect one type of human right are more likely to respect others, both in their domestic sphere and on the international stage. And if that's the case, then the policy response becomes obvious. Use whatever tools of national power are available to us to encourage more states to follow our example as states that respect religious freedom. And by our, I don't just mean the United States. I'm a private citizen now. I'm not speaking for anybody other than myself. I'm talking about the movement that Sam and Katrina have labored so hard and so successfully to build. Western Europe, to be sure, the United States, to be sure, but Japan, South Korea, India, African countries. What unites us is not creed. What unites us is not faith. What unites us is our shared vision for a world in which religious expression, religious belief is respected, no matter what the religious belief. Thanks. Look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Ambassador. Father Rajan, please bring your remarks.
Good morning. Thanks, Peter. And I also thank my co-panelists. I come from India, such a lovely country. I would like to greet you on behalf of our 1,425 million people enjoying very diverse religious, linguistic, and cultural differences. Today, I can speak volumes about the attacks on minorities in India, the violation of freedom of religion. But anyhow, my topic is how religious pluralism, which promotes stability, which leads to growth. So that's my understanding. I will speak on religious pluralism. For that, I depend on our constitution, Indian constitution, which very clearly defines India as a sovereign, secular, socialist, democratic republic. Secularism, of course, it's a little different understanding from Western countries, where there is a clear wall between religion and the state. But in India, it is understood as equal treatment of all religions. That is secularism in India. And religious pluralism is promoted by the Constitution itself for three things. First, it fosters understanding among all the faiths. It promotes tolerance and kind of acceptance the diverse faiths. You know, India, a cradle of religions, it's called, because Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all originated in Indian soil and then became missionary religions to the rest of the world. And we have Christianity, Islam, Baha'i, Zoroastrianism, and also hundreds of beliefs. You can count on them. So it's really a land of diversity. And we are proud of it, of course. After the independence, the makers of the Constitution made it very clear that only fostering this pluralism and learn to live in a multicultural society following the principles of multiculturalism, that India can sustain itself and grow. And they believed that one day India will lead the world as Swami Vivekananda, he envisaged long back, only through fostering this understanding. Second, it mitigates religious conflicts. Third, it of course encourages dialogue and promoting brotherhood. So dialogue is very much important. Why? Because only then the society lives in harmony. Ultimately, what you want? A harmonious society to live, where your life can be peaceful. That peace brings real growth. The growth is not for few, but a growth envelops everyone's interests. That's the understanding. So, India, of course, enjoying its religious pluralism. There are so many reformers in India have promoted religious pluralism. Now, of course, for last 10 years, we have a setback because of a movement which worked for last 100 years to promote division and hatred in the society based on religion and caste. That only the high caste has the right to rule over everyone. But anyhow, people are still very sane and they try to save the democracy in India. Why religious pluralism is a must? Rather than explaining in principles, I will give you a small example that a couple of weeks back there was a survey conducted by the government where they have pointed out the states which reel under religious hatred and religious polarization. It's very sad to note that 62% of their population in those respective states have less than 2 meals per day. Only 30% have 3 meals. Whereas, a state I come from, Tamil Nadu, my neighboring state, Kerala, there the religious tolerance and this religious pluralism is very much appreciated. I would put a word like more than appreciated, it is celebrated. You know, where 97% of the population have 3 meals per day. So that itself proves that for stability and growth, this religious pluralism is a must. I have very concrete example from Sri Lanka, which is very close to us, my neighboring state, which is supposed to be the paradise of the earth. But reeling under this religious extremism, violence, riots, that has upset its democracy and reeling under poverty. So it says, it emphasizes the fact that if you want to have a decent and a better world, then religion is supposed to be understood as the conscience of the humankind. We need to develop this conscience. Unfortunately, it is in decline, but when I see you all, that I believe that we will emerge victorious one day. And I work in a movement called the Social Harmony Federation to promote unity and harmony in the society, believing that one day the evil forces will be defeated and truth will triumph. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Reverend Sharma, please chat with us about Nepal and how pluralism impacts Nepal.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am Reverend Mukunda Sharma from Nepal. I am the founder of the Transformation Nepal and Deputy General Secretary of Nepal Christian Society, which is National Alliance of Nepal, Christian among the Christianity. And I'm very happy to be with you here. And I'm talking about the social benefit of the religious pluralism. I'm as a human right defender for 30 years in Nepal. So I hope you know about the Nepal and the Nepal constitution recently, which is 2015 new constitution have introduced in Nepal. So in Nepal before 2015, Nepal was as a Hindu nation, where more than 82% is still Hindu, and about 8% Buddhist, and 4% is Muslims, and less than 2% are the Christians. So working for few years, the experience shows that it is very important to work in different religious groups and minorities. Now, some of the benefit what I have found was this: through the social benefit of the religious pluralism. Religious pluralism, the coexistence and mutual respect of diverse religious belief and practice, offers numerous social benefits that are the essential for the stability and development of contemporary societies. In regions like Nepal and South Asia, where the multitude of religions exist side by side, the positive impact of the religious pluralism are the particularly significant. Understanding this benefit can help society harness the potential of religious diversity to foster a more inclusive and prosperous future. First, when we work with the religious pluralism, and then we get the enhancing the social cohesion. The religious pluralism plays a crucial role in enhancing social cohesion by promoting mutual respect and understanding among different religious groups. This fosters sense of unity and belonging, reducing social fragmentation and promoting the harmonious coexistence. By encouraging interfaith dialogue, cooperation, and religious pluralism helps build bridges between communities, strengthening the social fabrics. I work for the Interreligious Peace Federation of Nepal, where we are working together with the Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Baha'i, and other minorities group. So it is very important that when it comes for the sustainability of the development, it helps for the harmony and to work together. That will help for the social benefit. And the second one would be fostering the peace and conflict resolution. The area prone to religious conflict, such as part of the South Asia and religious pluralism, provide a framework of the peaceful existence. By acknowledging and respecting diverse religious practice, and society can reduce tension and prevent the conflicts. And the religious pluralism encourages dialogue and reconciliation, facilitating conflict and resolution, and contributing to the long peace stability. So it is very important to work with the religious minorities and the majority people together. Like, for example, in Nepal, in the constitution, it says the secular state, and the description of the secular state, secularism, is to protect the traditional religion, which is Hindu religion, and to promote. So that is little bit challenging for us. What is secularism? I mean, it depends. It depends in different states. What is secular state? So it is little bit challenging for us. But it seems that some of the majority people, like Hindu, where more than 80% are Hindu people, those who wants to, under the Hinduism, there can be other religion. So their definition is like, but still we are working in this with the interreligious people for the social harmony and for the social benefit. And third one is enhancing the civic engagement. Religious pluralism encourage individuals from different religious and background and the practice to activity in the civic life. And this diverse engagement strengthens democratic process of promote the inclusive governance. And when citizens from various religious communities work together in public affairs, it enhances the quality of decision making and foster a representative and accountable to political system. What we do is, when there is something which is not in line with the constitution, in line with this makes some disharmony in the society, we come together and try to influence, advocate to the government to influence the policy. And we have different layers of working style, the modality. We work with the community for the sustainability, and we work with the government, and we work in the policy makers. So these are the social benefit when we work together with this pluralism society. And third one would be contributing to the economic development, which is very important. There is no if there is no religious freedom, there is no development in the society. So unless and until if we do not respect the dignified life of others, and there is no development. So that doesn't help for the development. Like, for example, Nepal is in between China and India. So we are a small country. So we are depending. We are just depending on different countries. So now they have their one interest, either India or the China. So but still we try to develop ourselves by making harmony in the society. So at the end, and the cultural enrichment, when it comes to the social benefit, this is very important to make the cultural enrichment and preservation. And then fourth, another one is enhancing individual well-being. So people can live a life, dignified life, which comes from the Bible. So this is what I just wanted to share something. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Reverend. So we have a few minutes. We want to get to audience questions. I'm going to ask some real quick lightning round questions to our panelists, and then we'll go out to audience questions. I want to go back to Ambassador Sales, and you laid a beautiful vision of the importance of religious freedom geopolitically. We're here in Japan, in Tokyo. tie it into Tokyo, tie it into Japanese sort of perspective. Why is it important from the perspective of Japanese government and Japanese policy?
Yeah, it's a great question, Peter. Thanks. It doesn't matter how nice your own house is if you live in a dangerous neighborhood. And when it comes to religious freedom, Japan unfortunately lives in a very dangerous neighborhood. Look at the list that the United States Department of State issues every year about countries of particular concern, the countries that are the world's worst offenders when it comes to religious freedom. North Korea, Burma, Communist China. What do those things have in common? So I think Japan is an incredibly important partner when it comes to the global struggle for religious freedom. It's the region's largest democracy. It has so much energy and creativity. It has so much economic power. It can have the same moral power by being a leader for religious freedom in the region and around the world. And I think Japanese policymakers will come to understand that that's ultimately good for Japan. It's ultimately good for Japan if its neighbors are not causing destabilization, if they're not causing geopolitical tensions to rise over religious freedom matters, if they're not setting off waves of migration or refugees that could cause destabilization in domestic politics. So I think the movement needs Japan, needs Japan's vision, it needs Japan's leadership, but I think Japan also benefits from assuming that responsibility and playing that leading role. Thanks.
Father Rajan, kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to Indian politics is the ruling party, the BJP, and Prime Minister Modi, and some of the statements they've made and their opinions towards what appears to be a very negative view of pluralism, really, and sort of an anti-religious freedom posture from them. There's obviously been elections recently where they didn't do as well as they were expecting to. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what's the climate right now in India around religious freedom and pluralism?
Thanks, Pete. That is a lovely question. India has a very strong legacy of religious pluralism. It's a land of Buddha. It's a land of Vedas. The Vedas define the entire human family, like the whole world, as one family. Vasudeha Kudumbakam. Kudumbam means family. That almost written 2000 years back, at least. Then I come from a culture, Tamil culture, which has taught us. A poet has written before Christ, that Pirappukkum ella uyirkkum. That means all are equal in the world. So something has ingrained in our NDA that you have to live only as brothers and sisters. That thousands of years back. And Emperor Asoka, one go spread the tenets of Buddhism, at least through the regions of Asia, that in his edicts, on all his stupas, it is clearly carved beautifully that in my empire, there should not be any religious enmity between religions. This took place 2250 years back. So such a very strong legacy we have. And based on that, the constitution was written and it promotes religious pluralism. Whereas one group that for almost last 99 years worked to create India as not a Hindu country, but a Hindu chauvinistic country based on the principles of Hindutva. That is not real Hinduism. Hinduism is a beautiful religion. I can vouch the fact. It's so beautiful, it is polytheistic. It adopts every belief in the world. No, it has no problem. Whereas the Hindutva says, India is one nation. So we are one people, defined by one religion and one language. One religion is Hinduism. That is according to their definition, not the real Hinduism. And one language, that is Hindi based on Sanskrit. They call it Deva Bhasha. That means language of gods. But you know practically about India. We are having more than 2,500 languages. Caste alone, we have more than 3,500 major castes and subcastes. So everything in plenty we have, including the population. So, when you say that in such a plural country, one nation, one religion, one language, that suppresses the human rights of all other communities in India. Result, we have states like Manipur, where hundreds have been killed. More than 60,000 people still live in the camps without any fundamental rights. And they say it will take another 100 years to rebuild the hope between these communities, which is very sad. So it's taking place in many parts. So this time, they really wanted to amend or they change the constitution, making it a Hindutva country, where they believe the minorities means not only in religion, but also group communities, they will become second-class citizens without any fundamental rights. Fortunately, that's why I said Indian people are little sane, and they expected some 400 seats in the parliament so that they can amend the constitution, removing the words secular and socialist. But they got a minority government. Of course, still they are in power, but very strong opposition this time people have elected. That means the ruling party has 290, around 90, and the opposition is 240. So that is a safeguard for the rights of the minorities, and it safeguards the constitution for time being, and of course, it stands as a strong voice to promote and to sustain religious pluralism in the soil of India.
Thank you. Reverend Sharma, I'm going to give you a challenge to give us in 2 minutes just a quick update on Nepal. I know they've had elections recently. What is the political environment there, and what is the attitude towards religious freedom from the government?
Thank you. Recently, there is a new government, a two-third majority government with a two-party, Nepali Congress and UML Communist. So they yesterday only they got the vote of confidence, and now we started new government. So these two political party are the more fundamentalist and more they want to amend the constitution where it's written that secularism, the word secular state they want to remove from the constitution, and they had that agreement between two government. Now it means we are just expecting that there will be more turmoil and difficulties in the future for the minorities because they want to establish Hindu nation again, which was in 240 years before, which was removed in 2015 constitution. And now it's very hard. A lot of persecution is taking place with the minorities group. So it's very difficult. And then again, the interest of China and the interest of India, it depends on the political change for Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll take two questions from the audience together, and then we'll hear from our panelists. So, gentleman here in the back has had his hand up. We'll go there first. And just introduce yourself and then state your question.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Dorjit Setan. I am a member of Tibetan Parliament in Exile. As we have a panel here from India, just want to acknowledge quickly that after China's occupation, India, with its constitution and belief, receiving His Holiness Dalai Lama and Tibetans, revival of Tibetan culture in India and 1,000 years of civilization is something that really need to be acknowledged. So just want to say that. And Ambassador, as you have mentioned about this dangerous time and increased China's transnational repression, with the tool we have right now in US, as well as democratic countries which believe in shares value, how we can make China accountable for its increased repression and the global security that we are seeing. And also considering whether it's Tibetans, Uyghurs, Southern Mongolians, Hong Kongers, not just as a victim, but partner in defending our rights for the shared value that we all care and we all here for. Thank you.
Thanks. That's a really important question. I think the answer is it takes an alliance. We've seen in recent years the world's bad actors sort of coalescing into an alliance of sorts, with China as the senior partner, Russia as a junior partner, and then Iran and North Korea auditioning for supporting roles, as it were. I think this partnership, alliance is too strong of a word. This partnership is brittle because it's a partnership of convenience, whereas alliances built around organizations like NATO, like the G7, these alliances are built around shared values. And I think they have far more global power and clout than the bad guys do. You can measure this, just economically. If you add up the gross domestic products of China and Russia on one side of the ledger, and then you add the United States, Japan, South Korea, the other G7 countries, the EU members, maybe India if they're feeling like playing ball on a particular day, the economic heft of our alliance system is monumentally greater than any kind of power that our adversaries can bring to the table. So I think a roundabout answer to your question is build an alliance of like-minded states that have shared values, that are prepared to use instruments of national power to advance those shared values and shared principles, and then use that alliance to promote good. And that's why we're here today.
Okay, we'll take one more question. Gentleman right here on the aisle, sorry. You, sir, right here on the aisle, yep.
Thank you very much. My name is Kenny Inoue. I'm a retired staff member of the UN. And today we discuss very interesting topic. And everybody mentioned human right or freedom to the religions, to believe in religions. But also we talked like a freedom not to believe in religion. But now my question is, do we also have a human rights or freedom to criticize other religions? That's my question. Two things come to my mind. One is the famous Charlie Hebdo incident in France. Yes, religious terrorism is terrible. We have to condemn. But if we don't kill other people, anything else is allowed? It seems that is most of the feeling in European countries. But as a Japanese, I have a feeling that is a little bit too much. Another thing that come to my mind is also in my country, Japan, it's not religion, but certain group of the Japanese people are very critical to the Korean people in Japan. They criticize, and sometimes they said, oh, they are the cockroaches, they should get out of Japan. Some people did not like this, including myself. Then eventually, that kind of things are prohibited as a so-called hate speech. That means we learned freedom of the speech has some kind of limitations. But so, in case of freedom of the religion, is there any limitations? Can we really criticize other religion? That's my question. Thank you.
Excellent question. Anyone on the panel want to take a swing at that one? Go for it, Father.
Yeah, that's a nice understanding of what's going on in reality. The right to freedom of religion, which gives you to profess, to practice, and to propagate. 3 rights. It's understood that you can positively claim your religion, speak on your religion, that is propagation. About criticizing the other religions, of course, for us in India, the Constitution has given a little space. You can criticize other religion. Only they are superstitious beliefs which may work against the interests of the society, like child marriage. If a religion promotes child marriage or prostitution, like temple prostitution, or making human sacrifice, if these kind of superstitious beliefs are promoted by any religion or any beliefs, then you have every right to criticize them and to ask your respective government to abolish those things for the sake of creating a civilized society. Other than that, we have no right to criticize their fundamental beliefs and their practices. That is our understanding in India. Thank you.
Ambassador, do you want to address it from a U.S. perspective?
Yeah. So in a previous life, I used to be a constitutional law professor. So I'm going to try very hard not to start reciting Supreme Court doctrine at you and put you to sleep like my law students used to have to endure. I guess I would begin to answer this question by going back to something that Katrina said during the opening session. There's culture and there's law. And in many senses, law and politics is downstream of culture. If we believe that certain things are beyond the power of the state to regulate, then we have to conclude that it's unacceptable for the state to regulate your thoughts about Christianity, positive or negative, your thoughts about Islam or Judaism, positive or negative. The state must also lack the power to punish you for expressing those thoughts about a particular faith tradition. And so, from a legal standpoint, this is a matter of doctrine in the United States, but I think it's also the right answer as a legal matter. It's open season. Say what you want, because we don't trust the power of the state. We don't trust the state with the power to micromanage our expression of any kind of opinion, political, artistic. I mean, can you say, I hate Protestant worship songs? We should be singing, you know, the Tridentine Mass. I mean, is that considered a form of blasphemy against a faith tradition? We don't trust the state to draw those fine distinctions. But as a matter of culture, one must respect one's neighbor, right? One must see in a fellow human being the divine spark. One must see the Creator in whose image we are created. And from that, it follows that we must treat other people with profound respect. Do you have a legal right to burn a Bible, to burn a Quran? Of course you do in the United States, and you should have that right. Should you exercise that right? No. Don't be a jerk. Express your religious opinions, express your other opinions in a way that acknowledges the spark of the divine in every other human person. And so I would answer your question at the sort of cultural level. Yes, I agree 100%, but I would give a different answer when it comes to matters of law.
Well, that's a beautiful spot to conclude our panel. Please thank our panelists, and we'll move into our lunch.